Okay, so this is inverse of functions. This is target 9C. Okay, this unit should be fairly easy, but just bear with me, take good notes, and you should be fine. So let's start off with our objective. Okay, you will be able to write the inverse function of a given equation. Okay, you've never seen inverse function yet, but it is fairly simple. Like I said, just take good notes, rewind the video when you need to, and just go through it step by step. All right, so here's how you find the inverse of a function. Okay, by now you should all know exactly what a function is, okay? So let's say we had the function f of x equals x. The inverse would be written as, you see this symbol here, okay? This means it's the inverse. So the inverse of the function f of x equals x. In this case, that one is true. So they're basically the same in this case, and that would be the one and only case. Okay, so yeah, don't get your hopes up. It is not that easy. It is pretty easy, not that easy though. All right, so here's the steps to creating an inverse function. So let's say we were asked to write an inverse function of y equals x plus 1. All right, so first things first, you switch the x and the y with each other. So it looks like this, x equals y plus 1. So we basically took the y and the x and they swapped places, okay? Everything else stays the same. And then we need to get y by itself. So you've done this before. This is when we've said solve for y and you've had to get everything away from the y to the other side of the equal sign. So we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, we're going to subtract 1 from each side because we got to get y by itself, which would give us x minus 1 equals y. Then all you have to do is change the y to that inverse function sign, this right here. Okay? So that's the notation for it. So your answer would be written as such, and it reads the inverse of f of x equals x minus 1. That's a fairly basic one, a fairly simple one, but the steps are basically the same as you go through this. So let's try an example. So we want to write an equation for the inverse of y equals negative 5x plus 10. So again, first things first, change f of x to y and swap the x and y. Well, there's no f of x to worry about. It's already y, so we're good there. So we're going to, again, swap just the x and the y. Those are the only things that trade places. So you get x equals negative 5y plus 10. Get y by itself, same second step. So this one's going to require a few extra steps. First, we have to subtract 10 from each side, because that's basically going to cancel this out, right? That's going to give us x minus 10 equals negative 5y. Okay, y is still not by itself. So now we have to get rid of that negative 5. Now remember, you have to take the negative symbol with the 5. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 5, or what might be easier when you have something like this is to multiply both sides by negative 1 over 5. It's the same thing, because here your negatives cancel out and the 5s cancel out, leaving you with just the y. Over here, you basically, that negative 1/5 x, or 1/5 times x, is just going to be negative 1/5 x. And then negative 1/5 times negative 10, because don't forget about this here, that minus symbol is actually a negative with the 10. So you've got to multiply negative 10 times negative 1/5, which is going to give you negative 1/5 x from this right here. And then the plus 2, because the negatives cancel out, 10 times 1/5 would give you 10 over 5, which reduces to 2. So that's how I got this, equals y. So negative 1/5 x plus 2 equals y. And again, change the y to the inverse notation. And your answer would be the inverse of f of x equals negative 1/5 x plus 2. Okay? So hopefully you can kind of see, even with a little bit more of a complex problem like this, how it would work. Let's try another one. Write an equation for the inverse of f of x equals the square root of x plus 7. Oh, so now we got a square root symbol thrown in there, so pay attention. again, change f of x to y and swap the x and the y, which is going to give you x equals the square root of y plus 7. So we basically changed this to this, and then we took the x and the y and we swapped places. So you get x equals the square root of y plus 7. Okay, again, you have to get y by itself. So just like before, subtract 7 from both sides. These are going to cancel out then, giving you x minus 7 equals the square root of y. So we're almost there. We've almost got y by itself. We can't leave it as a square root of y. How do you get rid of a square root? Hopefully you remember that the way to get rid of a square root is to square both sides. So we're going to take the square root of y squared, and then we're going to do x minus 7 squared. Now, don't worry. You can leave it just like that. So change y to the inverse of f of x, and you'll get it like this. So I don't actually expect you to go ahead and do anything with this, and expand that out, use FOIL and all that other good stuff. You can leave it just like that, and that is fine. All right, so again, you see the square root symbol. Make sure you know to square both sides to get rid of it. Next example. Oh, and this should be example 3. Darn typos. Write an equation for the inverse of f of x equals x squared plus 2. Again, change the f of x to y. So y equals x squared plus 2. And we're going to swap the x and the y. They're just changing places, that's all. Which gives you x equals y squared plus 2. So notice my exponent didn't go with it. Just like in the last problem, the square root symbol didn't go with it. The squared symbol doesn't go with it. Okay, so we're going to subtract. We're going to get y by itself. So we're going to start off by subtracting 2 from both sides. Getting rid of that, which is going to give you x minus 2 equals y squared. Now to get rid of a square root, we had to square both sides. How do you think we get rid of a square? That's right. You square root both sides. All right. And that's it. Again, just like with a square, you don't actually have to figure any of that out. So we change that y to the inverse notation. So the inverse of f of x equals the square root of quantity x minus 2. All right, so some big things to remember, your steps. Write the function as an equation with y. So if it's not already written as y equals, change the f of x to y. Next, switch just the x and the y. So where the x was, put a y. Where the y was, put an x. And then solve for y. And finally, change the y to the notation for an inverse function, which again, you see there. So that's it. That's all you have to do. The next unit, or the next section is actually going to be more of a review than anything. So hopefully this week will be a little bit easier for you. You've only got this and then the next unit, which is kind of more of a review than anything. So take good notes. If there's anything that's confusing, write it down in your notes now. Ask questions when you get to class. And do not forget to go to edline.net and do the quiz that goes along with this. So just look for 9C when it's up. Okay? Have a good one, guys.